On October 22, 2025, in the gray light of dawn, the Ukrainian HIMARS crew readied for one of the most important missile strikes of the war. From a hidden spot near the southern front, the team worked in silence, their movements practiced and precise. Their target wasn't just a military base. It was a sprawling $3 billion Russian oil processing complex in occupied Crimea facility feeding the Kremlin's war machine. Inside their armored cabin, the fire control computer showed satellite feeds, encrypted data, and ballistic calculations. Everything was perfectly aligned. But they knew Russian early warning radars were sweeping the skies, ready to detect any threat. They had only minutes before enemy radar could pinpoint their location, and even less time before air defense missiles might launch to intercept their rockets. Once those missiles were in the air, there was no turning back. As the leader's hand hovered over the firing switch, the crew shared a single thought. If this works, Russia loses a strategic fuel artery. If it fails, they might not survive to fire again. At 6:45 a.m., the command came through. Batteries release. The crew's tension instantly turned into focused action. The M142 HIMARS launcher had been stationary for less than 4 minutes, just long enough to stabilize itself. The launcher's digital brain had already combined all the data: satellite intel, target coordinates, and real-time weather. Each of the 2 GMLRS rockets held a 90-kilogram warhead and was guided by military-grade GPS and a high-precision inertial navigation unit. This meant the missiles could correct their path dozens of times per second, even under heavy electronic jamming. The computer showed the final plan: 2 separate flight paths, 2 different attack angles, both timed to hit the refinery at the exact same moment. The crew knew that once they fired, counter-battery fire would rain down on them within minutes. But the conditions were perfect. At 6:46 a.m., the gunner pressed the switch. A thunderous blast ripped through the morning air as the first missile launched, accelerating past 2,300 miles per hour. 15 seconds later, the second rocket followed, its delayed launch designed to confuse Russian tracking systems. The missiles immediately veered onto different paths, one north, the other east, to stretch enemy defenses thin. As the exhaust plume faded, the HIMARS crew was already gone, racing down a dirt track to escape retaliation. Far above, the missiles were now flying autonomously, calculating and adjusting their own paths. One soared to over 45,000 feet before beginning its descent. At that altitude, it received clean satellite signals, free from Russian jamming. The 2 rockets, though separated by dozens of kilometers, were perfectly synchronized to strike together. Down below, the refinery was completely unaware that destruction was screaming towards it. These weren't simple rockets. They were computer-guided surgical tools. Each missile's guidance system combined GPS with an inertial navigation system, or INS. This meant even if Russian jammers scrambled the GPS signal, the ENSA cluster of high-speed sensors would keep the missile perfectly on course. As the rockets entered contested airspace, they made tiny, evasive adjustments, making them incredibly hard for Russian air defenses to track. Their small size and composite materials gave them a radar signature no bigger than a large bird. They also used terrain masking, flying low in radar shadow zones created by hills and buildings. This forced Russian systems to track 2 separate, flickering threats. Every time the missiles corrected their course, enemy computers had to recalculate their predictions, losing precious seconds. By the time the air defense network realized what was happening, the missiles were less than 45 seconds from impact. At 6:46 a.m., the first radar return appeared on the screens of a Russian air defense regiment. The S-400 battery, one of the best in the world, struggled to get a stable lock. With barely 45 seconds to react, the commander launched 2 massive interceptor missiles. On paper, these interceptors were deadly, but the data guiding them was inconsistent. The Ukrainian missiles were weaving and adjusting their paths every second, making the predictions inaccurate. As the interceptors closed in, the GMLRS rockets executed their final evasive moves. At 2,300 miles per hour, a tiny adjustment makes a huge difference. The interceptors detonated, filling the air with shrapnel, but the Ukrainian missiles had already passed. They were too small, too fast, and too unpredictable. In desperation, Russian operators activated their close-in defenses, firing thousands of explosive shells into the sky. But it was hopeless. The missiles were already seconds from impact. The air defense net had completely failed. At 6:47 a.m., the first GMLRS missiles slammed into the refinery's processing unit at over 2,000 miles per hour. The warhead punched through reinforced concrete and detonated inside, shredding compressors and pipes, releasing massive volumes of highly explosive gas into the air. The missile had hit the exact point designed to cause a catastrophic chain reaction, but this was only the first step. 15 seconds later, the second missile hit the central control building. This warhead was fused with a slight delay, allowing it to burrow deep into the structure before exploding. The control center housed all the systems for emergency shutdowns and fire suppression. When it detonated, every single safety system in the refinery was instantly destroyed. This timing was no accident. Ukrainian planners had calculated that the first missile would release the gas, and the second would eliminate any way to contain it. The refinery was now a massive, uncontrolled bomb, waiting for a spark. And a spark was all it took. An enormous fireball erupted, creating a shockwave felt for miles. The flame front expanded faster than the speed of sound, turning the gas cloud into a massive fuel-air explosion. The blast was so powerful, it registered on seismic sensors over 100 kilometers away. Temperatures soared to over 1,800 degrees Celsius, hot enough to liquefy steel. Towers and pipelines collapsed. Storage tanks ruptured, feeding the inferno with more fuel and sending shockwaves across the coastline. The firestorm devoured everything. In less than 10 minutes, a complex that took decades to build was reduced to a burning, molten crater. Damage reports later confirmed the facility was beyond repair. Ukraine had effectively erased one of Russia's most important energy assets with just 2 missiles. The strike sent a strategic shockwave through Russian command. The facility was a critical fuel source for the Black Sea Fleet and military operations in southern Ukraine. Losing it forced Russia to use longer, more vulnerable supply routes. The attack was a masterclass in modern warfare, showed that speed and timing are everything. The HIMARS crew was in and out before Russia could retaliate. It proved that redundant guidance systems could defeat sophisticated electronic warfare. And it exposed the weaknesses of even the best air defense systems against fast, low-signature threats. By planning for a cascading failure, Ukraine multiplied the destructive power of its missiles. The strike will be studied in military academies for years to come. In under 10 minutes, 2 perfectly synchronized missiles crippled an industrial giant and reshaped the logistical battlefield. As the smoke cleared, satellite images showed the smoldering ruin silent proof of Ukraine's evolving military power. The Feodosia strike was more than a tactical victory. It was a message that in this new era of warfare, no target is truly safe. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more deep dive frontline stories, battlefield analysis, and updates on the rapidly evolving conflict.